All right, Russ is back. We're talking Tigers and maybe a third baseman. And I very, very much agree, Russ, when I'm thinking about what the Tigers should do is also not trading their young relievers. They have a bunch of like cheap young relievers that were good this year. And I read articles all over the place like, oh, maybe they'll trade him here or there. I'm like, no, if they're trying to compete, those guys are cheap and they're good and they're young. I'm like, no way. But anyway, AJ, there's Chapman, there's Candelario,
Yeah,
there
Chapman's the
is
answer. If we're going off
Justin
Russ,
Turner.
but yeah, Justin Turner would be a great guy to come in for a year or two and be the bridge in the clubhouse that they need. But my thing is Matt Chapman fits the best, Russ. But why does he have to be reasonable? The Tigers have bukus of money. And two, the other thing that you started this whole thing off with before you jump me, why are the Twins cutting salary? The Twins made the payroll or the playoffs. They won a playoff series for the first time since 2002. Why the fuck are the Twins cutting payroll? It's not like their payroll was $350 million. It was very reasonable. And all they got to do is maybe go out and sign a pitcher or two, bring back Sonny Grey, who liked it there, and they could have had a chance in the division again. Still, we're cutting payroll. Why?
I'll start with the Twins first. I'd love to have an answer for you, but I don't have one. And I think when the Twins surprised the baseball world, shocked the baseball world, and signed Carlos Correa and brought him in, that was kind of like the Twins aren't playing around. And they signed Byron Buxton to the extension, which, hey, they made that decision to keep Byron in Minnesota. Hasn't really worked out for them the way they thought it would. But they had been able to develop a lot of young players on the offensive side of baseball. They've developed starting pitching. They were able to acquire a lot of starting pitching where it's like, the Minnesota Twins are starting to put something together. And it felt like Sonny Grey fit that market perfectly, fit that team perfectly, what they wanted to put together there. And it is a bit of a head scratcher that you commit to a guy like a Carlos Correa long term and say, hey man, we're going to be for real. And then the following offseason, you're cutting payroll. As far as the Tigers and Matt Chapman, I think the reasonable comes from the part of the 659 OPS after May 1st was how I'm thinking, because I know that's how teams are going to think, right? They're going to say, Matt Chapman, we know you got big time power. We know you have a crazy glove. We know you're going to be good in the room. But was that more you from May 1st on last year, or was that, an exception to the rule? And I think teams are going to look at it that way. Like, who is the real Matt Chapman?
So they're going to be anchored by Kenta Maeda and Tarek Skubal? Or can they make that splash with Jordan Montgomery, a 31-year-old who's going to clearly, after what Sonny Gray got, is going to cost $25 million a year?
Well, I think you and I both know, Kratzy, you're going to need more 5 dudes to get through a season. And especially with those guys coming off injury like Skubal and Mize, and you have young guys in Matt Manning and Reese Olson, you need some veterans in that rotation. So I wouldn't be shocked if they're still in the market looking for some veteran starting pitching. Jordan Montgomery, outside of Skubal, don't have really another left-hander in there that you can trust. That would make some sense to me.
Yeah, and you're damn right. The division is down. It is time right now. I mean, look, the division is pitiful. It's like usually when we look at the trade deadline, for example, the winner were the Minnesota Twins because they didn't sell and everyone else did. I mean, that's how you describe the AL Central right now. So, yeah, Detroit should get after it. I think this is the offseason for them to be aggressive. I haven't heard them a lot in terms of like playing at the top of the market, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully they do. Okay, let's move to the Dodgers, Russ, who finally make their big move this offseason. No, all kidding aside, Jason Hayward, though, 1 year, $9 million. Obviously, they're playing at the top of the market. I'm sure they're in on Ohtani. I'm sure they're in on Yamamoto, etc. But what do you think of them bringing back a player who, if you look at what he did this past season, it was really freaking good for them? That's not high cost for a 1 year contract for a player that put together his stats.
Yeah, I think when you look at what Jay Hay had to do, going to LA, playing for the Dodgers on a minor league deal that wasn't guaranteed, making the roster, and then being okay with that platoon role, which a lot of guys, after starting their whole careers, aren't comfortable with. He fit right into that. It helped that he had a lot of guys that he knew on that roster, knew Mookie Betts, had been best friends with Freddie Freeman from their time back in Atlanta. And I think for Jay Hay, he didn't have to have the pressure of the big deal anymore. And now he could go out there and just play his game. Had his highest OPS, highest power numbers in well over 4 or 5 years. And I think it's just having a guy like that in the room is helpful. We talk about Kyle Schwarber all the time, very similar, and just being a guy that people kind of gravitate towards. I think Jason Hayward, as well as being a really good player last year for the Dodgers, is just a great person to have, professional, good on and off the field. And I think for the Dodgers, I think they went into last year saying, all right, Jay, hey, show us why you should be here. He showed, and now they paid him for it.
Cardinals were signing. Jay Hay signed back with the Cardinals, but maybe that's too soon for Cardinals fans. Maybe we're not gonna have that. But
No chance.
has this signing, because the Dodgers just throw $10 million, $9 to $12 million out there, like it's like, yeah, we'll see if it works out. Has this signing devalued the market, or has it overvalued or pushed the market up? It's a guy that's a 2-WAR player, so technically $9 million for a guy who created 2-WAR at age 35. He was 34 this year, so next year he'll be 35. Is this something that other teams are looking at and going, dang it, we missed that? Not that they had a chance for him, or are teams saying, dang it, they're overpaying. Now it's going to be even more for us to get some of these 32-year-old guys.
I think it might be closer to that, Kratzy, where I think teams already look at the Dodgers and say, man, they get to do some stuff that we don't get to do, or we won't do, right? And I think there's always been this understanding that the Dodgers get to play in different water than everybody else than most teams get to play in. And so I don't want to discredit Jay Hay after the season that he had. Like, he went out there, played well, hit for power, like people thought he could do for a long time, played good defense. It allowed them to have flexibility with Mookie Betts to move him to short, move him to second base. And I think it's one of those areas where I think the Dodgers value Jay Hay differently than other teams do because of what he allows them to do as far as Mookie Betts, right? Like, I don't think it's just a one-for-one type of move. I think it's one, you get Jay Hay and you're allowed to do this, you're allowed to do this. You can start Mookie at second base and short against right-handed pitching. You can pencil in Jay Hay against right-handed pitching and move things around like that. And so I think they value it differently than another team might look at Jay Hay. And I think it works out for Jay Hay in the end. Like, you get $9 million coming off of a solid season. But I think other teams in the marketplace might look at it and say, "Oh, are you maybe overpaying a guy?"
How much?
I think he's underpaid.
I think the year he had last year,
Based off the year he just
he had a
had.
great year. How much, Russ? I just want to know. First of all, he had a great year, but how much did the Freddie Freeman influence happen? I mean, with Hayward, because he struggled. Him and Freddie are literally, I mean, like this.
Boys
they
came
were
up together.
Since they were drafted. They were roommates. They became like best friends. So, I mean, does Freddie Freeman get a cut of this deal from J.A.? Is he like, hey, man, like, you got me another $9 million, bro. Here's a couple.
Is that a real question? And also, does Freddie need the money?
No, but it's still nice if your friends would pay for something.
If I'm Jay Hay, I go, big dog, I think the Dodgers took care of you. And I know Atlanta took care of you. I'm just going to keep my $9 million, and I'm going to put that in the bank. But thank you.
I was more talking about the three of you.
I don't know what that means.
When friends help a friend out, Kratz, Scott, Russ.
So we need to kick you
need to give me money.
I'll get your lunch today.
Man, you're such a pal.
AJ, you do this thing. I know how many years you played in the big leagues.
What does that matter?
That means you should be helping me.
Friendship dues.
Russ, this is a thing. He will pay for all the meals. He's being humble. He's being super humble. So anytime you go out, don't even reach for your wallet.
No, he doesn't.
He's got it. He's got it. It's offensive. It's offensive if you reach for his wallet. Because he's like, Google me. Check me out on Baseball Reference.
Kratz, here's my thing. I believe you, but it might be different Russ rules when me and AJ are out.
Russ like this. He's like, my hand don't go that far. I can't get it down there. I don't know why.
I'm like, I go in here, go in my wallet. I'm ready.
Look at all the dust. Look when he shakes that thing. Look at all the dust that comes out.
All right, so I'll take you to a team that has to pay for all the dinners right now. Ready?
Yeah.
our poll question, which we're late to the party here, but I wanted to wait to bring it out during this segment. We're talking Giants for a couple minutes. Will they make a big impact this offseason? We basically put it as a statement, and the Giants will be making a big impact this offseason. So is it A, true, B, they'll only sign like one good player, C, they do nothing, which you might laugh at, but we thought they were going to do something at the trade deadline, and they did literally nothing, or D, Ohtani or bust? So where would you vote? It's kind of like an all over the place poll. Where would you vote, and where are you at right now in San Francisco? Because in my mind, I think there's a stigma with some players that are already in the league that don't want to go there for a variety of reasons, right? And I think that if I'm San Francisco, they're probably heavily going after some players that are coming over from Japan, because there's a ton of talent coming over from Japan this offseason. And maybe they don't care as much about the team being mediocre, the platoon city, and the, hey, we're going to have two starters and everyone else is going to be weird. And some guys don't like the city, right? Like all of that stuff that's into play, I don't think might not be as much of a play for an international signing. What are your thoughts?
I honestly think they need to be Ohtani or bust. And I think when I say that, 30 teams should be Ohtani or bust, right? But I think with San Francisco specifically, they went all in on Judge and missed. They were all in on Harper and missed. And they've needed somebody to be the face of that franchise since Buster Posey retired. And at some point, I think Lamont Wade Jr. is a really good player. I don't think he's the face of that franchise, right? I think Mike Yastrzemski is a good player. I don't think he's the face of that franchise. Like, who's going to be the guy that is the aircraft carrier for you as a franchise and as a ball club? Like, who's the guy that people are going to say, you know what, I must see this guy play at Oracle tonight? Like, who is that person? Why not let it be the best player in the world, right? And so, to me, that's, if you're going to throw all your money at somebody, like they tried to throw all their money at Carlos Correa, that deal fell through. So why not say, all right, if we're going to throw all our money at somebody, let's let it be the best player the world is seeing, and just make that our huge move, and then go from there.
Russ, has there ever been an organization that needs a star? I mean, we just kind of hit on it a little bit, but the Giants need a star. The Giants are better. Obviously, Barry was the star of stars, right? And then you had Buster Posey, but right. You also had Bumgarner and Lincecum and Kane, and Crawford was great, Brandon Belt, Pablo Sandoval. I mean, how many Panda freaking hats did you see running around, whatever it's called now? I still want to call it AT&T from when I played there, but I know it's Oracle, I think now, Parker.
Yep.
Whatever it's called out there. But there's no fan base that needs a star more. They've tried. You mentioned Judge and Correa, and they keep trying, but Ohtani's it, right? Like, if you can convince Shohei Ohtani to go to San Francisco, I feel like it changes the stigma that's kind of out there that people don't want to go to San Francisco. Now, will Ohtani want to go to San Francisco? It's freezing cold all year, right? You're in August. You're in heavy coats and parkas there, okay? And the ball doesn't go anywhere. And don't give me this. Dude, you didn't play baseball? Well, it sucks when it's August you're in a puffy jacket and you're going, oh, my God, it's August. I want to wear sunny and sweat.
I live in Chicago.
Still, I understand you're in a blizzard, but, I mean, in August, you don't want to be in a blizzard, right? I mean, I remember playing there in August, and I'm in a long sleeves, and I'm like, gosh, how can I get warm, right? But the ball also doesn't carry there as a hitter. So why would Ohtani not want to go to a place like, I don't know, I know Dodger Stadium is not the greatest hitter's park in the world, but at least the weather's good. It's going to be 72 every game, and everything's perfect. I don't know. It just seems like they're going to have to overpay so much at times to get guys, and they've been willing to do it, but they haven't roped the guy in yet.
You talk about stars, AJ. You played there, right? You got to mention yourself in that conversation.
No, dude, I was the guy behind Barry Bonds that they intentionally walked 400 times that year to get to.
But no, you're right. I think they need him, and I think when you look at Farhan Zaidi since he got there, what have they been able to do? I know they had the 107 win season when then they got bounced by the Dodgers, right, in the postseason, who won 106 games that year. So I think the clock is starting to tick on Farhan and this regime in their front office. And at some point, they're going to have to land that big fish, right? I know they have the blank check to give to somebody, and they've been trying to give it out, but nobody's accepting it. I think you would write that check to Shohei and make him say no to your $450, $500, $550 million. Make him say no.
Okay, so he says no. What's plan B? Who's the second? Who's the second star? Who is the second star out on the market? Or are they just going to go, a Reese Hoskins, G-Mark Candelario, and try to piece it together?
Like last offseason.
Like last offseason.
That's what they did.
But because
Haniger and Conforto.
Guys that they're like, we hope, we like them. I like those players. But they're not going to go out and get pitching because what pitcher is going to be like, yeah, cool, I want to be a bulk guy if I struggle for a little bit. And they're sitting there going, we got a lot of value in Ryan Clark starting 63 of our games.
They're going to blame some of that on Gabe Kapler.
They already blamed Gabe. He gone.
Yeah. We know. I'm just telling you, for example, Russ, if I sit down with Yamamoto and I'm San Francisco, right, and they don't get Ohtani, let's say Ohtani says screw it. Now, my one thing on Ohtani is they better offer so much more than everyone else because why the hell not? And they need their superstar.
So you're saying
come up short.
Offer 50 more than anybody else is offering.
I put in the chat, I said 50 to 100 more. Who cares? They have no superstar.
Didn't they do that with Judge? Didn't they try that with Judge?
Yeah, it didn't work. But I'm saying try that again. It didn't work, but try that again. Okay, so let's say that doesn't happen, all right? Now we're on to Yamamoto. And his representatives say, hey, we noticed that, especially in the second half of last year, you only really had 2 starters, and you were kind of screwing with everyone else. We don't really like that. Now, it's Yamamoto. Like, any team should not be messing around with a guy who could be and should be a number 1. They're probably sitting down there and saying, the way the coaching staff was set up last year, that was something they were into. That's why we cleared that up. We all know it also has to do just as much, if not more, with the front office, and that's what Farhan Zaidi likes to do. But they're going to say, that's our scapegoat. We're not going to do that with someone like you, correct?
I would imagine that would be the case. Like, I have a hard time believing that they would turn Yamamoto into a bulk guy. But that should be the guy that they go. I think that's a guy that any team should be going after right now. The guy's 25 years old, and you have a lot of projectability with him. And then think about their rotation. If they go and bring him over, you have him. You have Logan Webb, who's a stud, right? You have Alex Cobb. You have Harrison, one of their young prospects. Like, I think you're going to build with starting pitching and defense and then go from there. And then you can make your trades and shrewd moves and try to bring guys in. Because I still think they need some offense. I think that's the area where they would end up struggling in that division especially. But I think their starting pitching is as good as any of those teams in the NL West outside of the D-backs. But if they can sign Yamamoto, I think that pushes you ahead of what Arizona can do.
And it's more, I would say, a slight on how they handled their pitching this year. My point is you're going to pay the consequences, and I'll ask these guys too. You're going to pay the consequences if you operate like you did in the second half, especially, but really for the whole year, right? Like everything is a platoon. It's like the extreme of no roles and the bulk, and you don't know what the hell you're doing unless you're right. Logan Webb or I guess Cobb to an extent. It sets a bad precedent if you're a free agent and you're picking between 2 teams. No? Doesn't that set a bad precedent?
They didn't do it with Logan Webb, but they didn't do it with Logan.
I know they didn't do it with Webb. I'm not saying for Yamamoto. I'm saying if
the other 3 days they did.
Okay, you're a mid-tier starter, right? And you're looking at them. Aren't you like, I don't really trust them. I don't like what they did, and it didn't work.
Ask Ross Stripling how his year went.
Yeah. You would have to like put a name to the mid-tier starter. Like who are you saying? Like if they go and get Kyle Gibson might be like, I don't want to be a bulk guy. Don't put me in that. Don't put me in that.
He also didn't sign there, though.
But I'm saying it would have to be
names would think twice. Kyle Gibson, Kenta Maeda, Lance Lynn.
I agree.
Nick Martinez, Luis Severino, Lucas Giolito, Seth Lugo. There's a ton of names that all would be looking at them like, so what's your plan now? You guys going to be a little different with someone like me? If I struggle for 3 starts, or you're going to say, you're coming in the 3rd?
I put it in my contract. If I come in, if I don't start, I get bonuses.
Yes.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. My question for you, Russ, is look back at what the Rangers did in 2021. They spent over $500 million. And then in 2022, they spent more monies, many, many monies on DeGrom. If you combine what they spent in those 2 off seasons, will the Giants spend more this offseason? Because if the Rangers can do it, I know they were coming into a new stadium. They were flush with money too, but the Giants can go more. So I don't know that number. I think it's $695 million they spent in the 2 years, if my math's right. But anyway, do they go over or under that this offseason in the length of contracts? Because that worked. The Rangers did it.
It did work, which is why people always say, "Hey, spending money works." My gut says under, just because there are not enough guys to spend that money on in this offseason to do what the Rangers did in 2 off seasons, where if you don't land Ohtani, you're probably not spending anywhere near that type of money to even get to $500 million. Because even if you bring in Yoshinobu Yamamoto on let's say it's $220 million, that would take another $400 million to get close to what the Rangers spent. And I just don't see the players on the market. I don't see them being able to acquire as many players it would take to get to that number this offseason.
Okay. Yamamoto, Blake Snell.
No one's getting all those players. No team's going to do it.
If you're saying
no team's going to do it.
Okay,
it sounds great. If it's fantasy baseball, and I'm like, I'll take Snell, I'll take Yamamoto, I'll take Ohtani, I'll take Chapman. Let's see who else is out there. I'm going to acquire all these guys. No team's going to do it.
The Yankees have done that in the past. They don't do it anymore.
The Dodgers don't do that anymore. The Yankees don't.
But the Giants need to make a splash. And here's my thing: if you're going to say, if you say
Farhan's not going to let them
$520 million, Shohei says, I don't like the cold. No, I don't want it. I'm going to take $520 million from the Dodgers. They say $520 million. Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Matt Chapman.
Yeah, they could do that. Absolutely.
Farhan's? You have to understand also,
Farhan's offered $400 million to Judge.
But I think here's the thing. I think Farhan now has gotten to a point, and it was Gabe and him. They're like, we're the smartest people in the world. We're going to figure it out by nickel and dime, which is what they've kind of done, right?
They did that.
In the 1 year it worked. In the 1 year it worked. 2021 when they won, they lost that year worked, but it hasn't worked any other. It hasn't worked any other year.
No.
But they also, a lot of these guys, a lot of these GMs now, and this is just the way people think now. They are like, I am smart and I can do this by putting smaller pieces together. Chris Young, the ex-player, went out and said, fuck that. I'm going out and I'm getting Seager, Simeon, DeGrom, Evaldi, Scherzer, Montgomery, Hedges, whoever the hell else I can get. And I'm spending all the money because I'm a former player and I know what it takes to win. Dombrowski, what does he do? He goes out because that's his MO. He's always had this MO. I'm going to go out and I'm going to spend it all and I'm going to get these great players in and we're going to make a run. Hell yeah, if I'm a player. Now, but you don't. But these guys all think, oh, our algorithm says we can. Analytics has a place, but the algorithm says, oh, if we bring in Conforto and Haniger and Jock Peterson and Lamont Wade Jr. and this guy Jacob Junis starts 74 of our 162 games this year, right? And this guy's, the Giants had 2 guys that started Webb and Cobb, and then the other 3 days were bullpen days.
Yeah, it was.
And guess what? Everybody in the bullpen was like, I can't pitch the last 2 months. And they went,
okay. So I'll ask this to Russ, since Russ is listening to us.
We got to go, too.
Banter. Is this Farhan Zaidi doing this, or is this the fact that Farhan Zaidi couldn't land Correa, couldn't land? They were going for the big players.
They haven't hit
Judge, Giancarlo.
This isn't. They were going after these guys.
I'll help. This is more than Zaidi because this goes before he was even there too.
Yes.
Russ, it's ownership. It's what I'm talking about. It's the organization. There's a lot to it. We don't have time, so I'm unfortunately going to say, Russ, we'll talk about it next time. There's good stuff. Yeah, one last sentence if you want it, but otherwise,
this organization.
Wait, you're paying for lunch?
I will pay for lunch if you get the next one, AJ.
Okay.
Ohtani pays for lunch in San Francisco. Russ, great to talk to you. We'll catch you soon, man.